What inappropriate thing did you do as a child? Story 1. I was about 2 when my brother was born, and I learned about anatomical differences between boys and girls. A few weeks later, I asked the mall Santa Claus if he had a penis. My mom hurriedly explained that I had a new baby brother and wanted to know if Santa was a boy or a girl. Story 2. My sister used to lap her drinks up like a dog. It turns out she was calling this doggy style. One time they forgot to bring her a straw at the restaurant we were in, and she loudly screamed, "Guess I'll do it doggy style." I think she was 7 or 8 at the time. Story 3. I used to call those pigeons with the pointy tuft on their heads horny birds. I would yell it out so loudly too. My mom told me she had to look away every time I did it, because it made her laugh until she cried. Of course, I wasn't told until later because I was only 5. Story 4. I used to play with this cup in the bath and drink water out of it for years. I did it in the shower too, as I got older. It had a handle on the end of it, and I never knew why. One day I witnessed my mother use this cup in the toilet violently, which was when I realized what a plunger was. Number 5. I was a severe nudist as a child. My parents could never keep me in my clothes, so my older sister would have her friends over whom I had a crush on, and I'd run outside butt naked to see them. There's a story that I still get teased about to this day. When my neighbor called my mom at work to tell her, I was riding my big wheel across one of the busiest roads in town completely nude. Story 6. I had a stuffed animal as a kid that was my favorite. It was a Red Bull, and I carried it everywhere. But it took me a while to give it a name. Finally, I thought, well, it has horns. So what would a good name be? I named my stuffed animal Horny. Story 7. When I was 7, I was shopping for clothes with my mom. She went to the clothes testing station or whatever it's called. English isn't my native language. I didn't know which one she was, so I peeked through every single one of them until I could find her. Story 8. I used to play with this cup in the bath and drink water out of it for years. I did it in the shower too. As I got older, it had a handle on the end of it, and I never knew why. One day, I witnessed my mother use this cup in the toilet violently, which was when I realized what a plunger was. Story 9. It scared me. I was about 10 when I realized what the fuck I had been using as a toy. I would fill it up with the water in the bath or shower, play with it, and sip the water out of it, as kids do with toys. I will probably never forget that. Story 10. When I was a young kid, I used to walk up to anyone irrelevant of age and gender and ask them, "Do you have a willy?" "I have a willy." My dad still brings it up from time to time. Story 11. When I was 6 or so, a friend and I borrowed his dad's Polaroid camera, and we thought it would be hilarious to take photos of our wieners. He had them in his cupboard for a while, and sometimes we would take them out to laugh at until someone put that kind of thing in context, and we quickly destroyed our accidental child porn stash and never spoke of it again. Story 12. When I was 8, I would get ready for school in the morning in my room, which had 2 big windows in the side, not covered. I'd get undressed, then these people would walk by in our backyard, some neighbors or something like that. So I'd happily jump and wave to them through the window, butt naked. Story 13. I was about 4 or 5 years old and obsessed with Harry Potter. I watched every movie at the time and even dressed up as Harry for Halloween. So one day I was in a deli with my mom and a Muslim woman walked in wearing an abaya with a face covering. According to my mom, I got scared, pointed at the ladder, and yelled loudly, "Mommy, it's a Dementor!" To this day, my mom still says it's the most embarrassing experience she's ever had. Story 14. When I was a toddler, I licked a dark-skinned black man because I thought he was chocolate. My mom was mortified, but the guy couldn't stop laughing. I cried. Story 15. I saw an Asian man for the first time. The area was not very diverse, and I was about 2 or so. He was wearing a yellow raincoat, or for whatever reason. I was confident that he was a puppet, like on Sesame Street or something. So I kept pointing at him and shouting to my mom, "Look, it's a puppet." Story 16. My mom told me I was with her in a bakery when a sizable black person walked in, and I screamed in terror. She apologized and said, "You hurt. You're very tall." He just laughed and said, "More like I'm very black." It was probably the first time I saw a black person. Story 17. I have an aunt with one fixed eye. Her right eye doesn't move. I think I was 4 or 5 back then. We were having a conversation, and I asked her flat out, "Can you tell me which way you're looking? It's very confusing." Story 18. I used to call those pigeons with the pointy tuft on their heads horny birds. I would yell it out so loudly, too. My mom told me she had to look away every time I did it, because it made her laugh until she cried. Of course, I wasn't told until later because I was only 5. Story 19. When I was 5, I wrote a story about how my mom and I went shopping, and she bought me a new sweatshirt. I didn't know why my teacher was laughing. I distinctly remember thinking, what's so funny about my sweatshirt? Story 20. 2 friends and I were humping the climbing pole because it made a funny feeling. So 3 girls, 5 years old, were humping the pole. We even showed it to our parents. Story 21. When I was a kid, the terminology I used to search for porn of people my age must have set off every pedo trigger in the government. Story 22. I don't remember it, but my mom said that when I was young, we were out in public, and apparently I had never seen a black person before. So I said to a black guy, "Did you paint your skin?" Story 23. I grew up in a very, very white area of the country. When a family with black children moved into our neighborhood, I was probably 11, making my brother 5. It was the first time he had seen a black person, and he asked the children how they got so dirty. Story 24. My parents used to keep mini bottles of liquor in the fridge, the ones you'd find in a hotel minibar. We had to make our lunches at times when Mom and Dad were busy at work, and my first grade ass decided to empty the bottles into the sink and put juice in them to bring to school. My parents got a call that day from school. Lol. Story 25. We went to an Easter egg hunt at my mom's friend's place, whom we didn't see in a long time. When I saw her friend, it said, "Oh my God, you got old." My mom was embarrassed and laughed it off, but I could see the pain in her eyes thinking back on it. Story 26. My older cousin asked me to come up to her room. I did. She said, "Put your hand in here." I did. She said, "Why does it feel so wet?" She smiled. Somebody started coming upstairs. She looked worried and told me to get out. I left. Story 27. I used to put my hands between my legs over my crotch and cross my legs when I was anxious as a kid. Not to do anything dirty. It just helped when I was anxious. Story 28. I woke up in the middle of the night, got up from bed, went to the trash bin, and was pissed at it. I was spectating myself the whole time, and I had no control. Story 29. When I was 4 years old, I discovered that if you play with your dick, it feels nice. But I didn't realize how inappropriate it was. So I did it in front of my mom and dad. They were staring right at me, just standing there staring at me. Story 30. I put my pants down and peed in the middle of the schoolyard. I was in the 1st grade, so I probably was around 6 years old, but I didn't care. I had to pee.